what would happen if you took Quake, gave it the Doom 2016 treatment, then let that game have a baby with Devil May Cry? Then you would get...
So if you're not a fan of the words, peak fiction, goat, raw, fire, click off of the video.
If you couldn't tell by my odd channel activity, I've been working with Quake quite a bit these past few months, and it's been a great learning experience. There's some adage about how a master of one's craft keeps 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future and all that, and I'd be lying if I said there hasn't been truth in that. Quake is an incredibly atmospheric game that knows its strengths and limits and plays into them to create unique and varied encounters. The first few levels alone show exactly why this game is so beloved and is getting content to this day both fan-made and official. That being said, I can pretty confidently say that Ultrakill is the Quake of our generation. The Quake for dudes who just turned 20 and already picked a piece of media to base their entire personality around, if you will. The baby sensory video of single-player first-person shooter games. Because once it catches your eyes, it's not letting go. One encounter in particular pretty much encapsulates the passing of the proverbial torch from the Johns onto R.C. Patala, the game's first boss outside of the prologue, V2. We open on a view of a manor bathed in moonlight, with Debussy's Clair de Lune playing softly in the background. This is the calm before the storm. The level is aptly titled Clair de Lune, and we aren't directed to the encounter right away. In stark contrast to the prologue, which was all shooting, all combat, all the time, the player must find the 3 blue skulls to unlock the door to the boss, with 0 enemies. All the other levels on this layer introduced the idea of the skulls acting as keys, and each generally had a blend of puzzles and combat, making the lack of enemies come off as almost eerie. Along the way, an odd figure seems to be trailing you as you explore the manor. The little opening section builds tension as you see this odd figure follow you around, but it also has some fun exploration and lore to find for those who may be interested. Once you gather all 3 skulls, you begin the boss fight proper. Or you can just do this. The challenge at the end of the level tasks the player to complete the level without picking up any skulls. So on a repeat playthrough, you can just skip this section entirely, which is a great touch. The player is then put into an empty atrium with the moon hanging directly over. The peak fiction meter is already off the charts, then suddenly, the red figure from before busts in and slams into the ground in a manner similar to you. He then bows to you before the fight begins. This fight is insane. The setting, the build-up, the way the game purposefully slows down for a moment when the boss enters to give it that extra oomph, and the way everything that you've learned thus far is put to the test. This is V2, and he's here to prove that he's you, but better. Every good character action game has a segment like this after all, and this one is hard. In all the levels that came before this, you could probably get away with simply strafing, but here, you need to be constantly moving, dashing, and sliding to dodge V2's attacks. To heal, you must douse yourself in fresh blood by punching him, which is a challenge with his speed. The pillars that act as cover can be blown up by his or your attacks, so the arena and the dynamic of the fight is constantly changing. On top of all that, his tiny frame makes him hard to hit. You're both evenly matched, it just comes down to skill and strategy. For a while, I was struggling hard. But then I had an epiphany. He's small and fast. Getting in hits is a challenge. That's where the nail gun comes into play. The nail gun has a secondary fire that shoots a magnet that can stick to walls and ceilings, but the silly little tip of the day mentions that you could also stick it to enemies. Why force myself to hit several perfect shots when I can just hit one and let nails fly? From here, I devised a strategy, beginning with placing a magnet onto V2 and utilizing the overheat storage mechanic of the nail gun and its variant to do tons of damage. From there, when I would need to recharge my nails, I would switch to the coin revolver, allowing me to get in damage by ricocheting my shots off the coins, all while dashing, sliding, and jumping to dodge the constant stream of bullets and explosions. I even found myself parrying his attacks when I could for the extra damage and healing, which felt more satisfying than words could possibly describe. After about an hour of attempts, I finally came out on top. This is the moment I knew that this game was going to be something special. It takes a lot for a game to make me feel this accomplished, and Ultrakill did it in the opening hour. After this, I sat on the results screen for a bit with a giant smile on my face before closing the game and going to bed, Coming as close as I'll ever get to my Ashita no Joe moment. This one fight encapsulates what I love in a game like this. Like Quake did years before with its genius level design, the encounter with V2 forces the player to play to the game's strengths and use its weapons and mechanics to come out on top. It's basically telling the player that they're going to need a basic understanding of the game's mechanics now, because it's only going to get worse from here. Almost like a certain other boss from a game I really like. Anyway, if the first real boss of the game is this good, I can only imagine what the rest is like. Anyone who enjoys what Quake's got going on has got to give Overkill a shot, because this game is truly something special.